Sabres are hanging around, another win, this time out west, and it gives them another night to focus on the playoff race. We'll talk about it coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Sabres get the win by a 6-2 final against the Seattle Kraken. It is their first win ever against the Kraken. It took a couple of years. It took 6 tries, but they finally got the job done when they needed it most. We'll recap the game, what it means in the standings, the out-of-town scoreboard. That's coming up as well, and a preview of Tuesday night's game between the Sabres and the Canucks. The Sabres can look for a back-to-back win stretch here to start their West Coast road trip. If you want to sign up and become a part of our Locked On Sabres text line, you can get goalie updates, you can get lineup updates. We'd like to chat through the games. I'm not usually a part of those when they're the 10 o'clock games, of course, but always love checking in the morning after to see what everybody thought of the late games. I watch those games super early in the morning, get up like 4 o'clock in the morning. These 10 o'clock games, way too late for my morning show, but I got to that game, didn't know what happened, threw it up on the computer here, and at 4:15 Monday morning or Tuesday morning, I put on the game. Boom, 20 seconds in, first shot on goal, 1-0 Kraken. Now, if you were watching the game live, you had a very easy out at that time. You might have thought, all right, I gave you 20 seconds, you gave one up, that's it. I'm going to bed. 10, 15 at that point. I'm not staying up for this. This is not going to be good. And if you had done that, you would have regretted it. Wouldn't have had that out. I saw that and went, oh, did I just make a crucial mistake? I could have been in bed for another 45 minutes. Could have been in bed for another hour. And instead, now I got to watch them get destroyed by Seattle or just not watch it at all, which I wouldn't do. But I stuck with it, of course. I hope you did too, as before you were going to bed. You didn't have to stick with it that long because the Sabres, it only took them a minute or two to get back in it and to tie the game and then to take the lead. That all happened within a couple minutes of each other. The Sabres hit right back against the Kraken and big goals. Tage Thompson, a guy that I had blasted after Saturday's performance in Detroit as the poster child for an important loss where your offense didn't show up, and that's been happening all season. There was Thompson only 25 seconds after Jordan Eberle had scored to make it 1-0. There's Thompson flying down the middle of the ice, and he rips it past Joey Daccord, the Seattle goaltender. During the goal announcement, you always love a good away goal for the Sabres when the home team is announcing their goal. Because the PA guy's got to carry it through, but he knows nobody's going to cheer now. Thompson gets his 21st of the season, and then Jeff Skinner, 3 minutes later, makes it 2-1. Alex Tuck, less than 2 minutes later, made it 3-1. So less than 6 minutes into the game, hopefully you had the over in this one, you had a 3-1 score, and it seemed like the game was going to be a lot of fun. So a little bit of a back and forth. Matty Beniers on the power play. Owen Power got a nice rebound goal as he went hard to the net, and then Jeff Skinner got his second and his third of the night for his 7th career hat trick, the first hat trick of the season by not just Skinner, but any Buffalo Sabre. Now, a stat of the day that's not going to make you feel great about the state of the team right now, but we'll get to more positive things in a moment. Skinner, first hat trick of the season for a Buffalo Sabre. Last season, they had 8. 8 hat tricks last year, 4 by Thompson, a couple by Tuck, a couple by Cousins, 1 by Okposo. This year, 1 hat trick. A very, significant stat to just show off how different the two offenses are from last year. And for Skinner, it wasn't just the goal scoring in this one. He had 3 nice goals, by the way. They were all not like him in front of the net and putting a rebound home. All 3 were him skating towards the net, whipping a wrister towards the net, and beating the goaltender. The first one is just him on the left wall, kind of a mini 2-on-1, and he just beats the cord. The second one is him getting a little bit lucky, almost turned it over at the blue line. It's a mistake that he's made a couple of times this year, but he got lucky. He kept the puck. He drove down the middle of the ice. Nobody came out to meet him, so he's like, I'm just going to rip this. And he did it along the ice, but he did beat Grubauer to make it. At that point, it was 5-2, which was kind of a dagger goal. And that was only a minute, not even a minute after Owen Power had scored. And then, game's almost over, 2 minutes to go, just trying to get Skinner the hat trick. Jordan Greenway makes an incredible pass behind the back, and Skinner with a snapshot in the middle of the ice. All 3 finishers' goals. All 3 were very nice, and he gets to his 24-goal mark of the season. He is approaching the 1,000-game mark, by the way, 7 games away. But as I mentioned, wasn't just the goal scoring. Jeff Skinner with the rare good defensive game. He made a couple of really nice defensive plays, some neutralized plays as well. Just an overall very strong game from Jeff Skinner. Don Granato said he had challenged Skinner, didn't like his play as of late. Not a lot of us have, but there's Skinner responding. And as I've mentioned with Skinner, even when he's not at the top of his game, he still finds a way to score goals. And he's the leader on the team right now, 24 goals, a down year for him, and there he is at the top of the stats for the Sabres when it comes to goal scoring. They'll always score goals as long as you don't put them on the 4th line, Sir Ralph Kruger. So, 6-2. Nice little game from Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Wasn't challenged a whole lot until the 3rd period when he started to get peppered, but he held strong and ends up with a 32 save night on 34 shots on goal. So, 33, 31, and 5. The win over Seattle means the Sabres get to 4 points out of a playoff spot. In part, they did not get out-of-town help on Monday, but here's to hoping they'll get a lot of help on Tuesday because there are a lot of teams around them in action. We will take a look at the out-of-town scoreboard. The Oots is coming up next, so stay tuned to know what you're going to want to root for and a little bit more of a breakdown of the teams around the Sabres, as nobody wants to take hold of this race for that second wildcard spot, and who better than the Sabres to do it. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented here on the show by Sleeper. I was looking all through Sleeper. Got my off-season fantasy dynasty teams that I'm looking to make trades. That's one thing, of course, that Sleeper is good for, but not just football. Check it out for daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Check out different players, studs around the league, McKinnon, Crosby, Makar, Ovechkin, who scored a couple of goals last night. Check out whether they'll record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. The Sabres get the win 6-2. If you want to check out something about the NFL, NBA heating up, but of course, college hoops, that's the season. Caitlin Clark, the men's tournament. Check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's available on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Sabres and Canucks Tuesday night. Before we get to that, and before we get to the out-of-town standings, again, check out our text line. If you're not a texter already, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. You can sign up there, and then everything from there on is on your phone, just texting. One text that I wanted to read from this morning after the game on Monday night. Talking about Devon Levi, he's up. Expectation is he will play against Vancouver. Texter, how do you feel about the possibility of Levi and UPL teaming up to match what Levi did last year? Going to need that 9-2-1 finish again. Last year on the state, Sabres were 6 points out with 13 games to go, about to lose their third straight. Seems better this year. In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. Last year, the Sabres had multiple games in hand at this point in the season. That's a key difference. Right now, the Sabres have played the most games. They've played 2 more than the Islanders, 2 more than the Penguins, 1 more than the Red Wings and the Devils, and 2 more than the Capitals, I should mention also. So 4 out, but you've got 2 games more that you've already played than Washington, who's currently in that spot. The good news on that front is the Sabres have 2 games left against Washington, so they can make up for that by winning those head-to-heads in regulation. So there's that. UPL and Levi, though, I don't really anticipate that Levi is going to get much run here. I think he'll play against Vancouver, and maybe he gets 1 other game in a back-to-back if it goes well. But I think you're going to see them ride Luukkonen all the way to the wire here. And how could you blame him, right? He's allowed 3 goals or less in 26 of his last 27 games. There is no goaltender in the league right now that you can more accurately say gives his team a chance to win every single night. Can they go 9-2-1? Here would be my answer. They want a record like that down the stretch? It's got to be more than Luukkonen. It's got to be more than the Dahlin-Byram pairing. It's got to be a night-to-night showing from Tage Thompson. And I highlight him, but I really mean the whole group. But why I highlight Tage is I don't legitimately think they could put a run together like that unless they have someone take over the offensive part of their game on a night-to-night basis. So in Seattle, Jeff Skinner took over. But Skinner is a streaky goal scorer. Even when he's at his best, he's a bit of a streaky goal scorer. I don't know that you want to rely on Skinner carrying your offensive output night to night. Tage is the guy. If Tage Thompson could build off what he did Monday in Seattle and can really heat up down the stretch of the season and look dangerous on a shift-to-shift basis. And just, listen, he's not going to give them a full season looking like what he did last year, clearly, because the season's almost already over. But can Thompson give the Sabres a dozen games of last year's Tage? Because if he could do that, then I truly believe they could go on a 9-2-1 stretch like that. But I think that's about what they need. I guess Cousins could do it as well, so he's worth mentioning here at the end, but it's those 2. One of those 2 has got to heat up and really carry their output night to night, because they can't have off nights like Saturday where there's nobody there to show up. At least one guy's got to be dominant on a night-to-night basis if you're asking me. So thanks for the question. It's a good one. All right, so the out-of-town scoreboard. All right, let's take a look at what we're looking at. First, before we get to Tuesday games, Monday did not go well for the Sabres. It's not going for my parlay. Also, it freaking hits parlay. Washington wins over Calgary. Alex Ovechkin scores 2 goals. The Flames starting to kind of quit on their season a little bit. They're 8 points out. And they've played more games. So not a big surprise, but Washington is still not a very good hockey team. So any win, I guess, for them really is at least a decent surprise on the road like that out west. So that did not go the Sabres' way. Tuesday, we got a lot of things to root for and root against. So let's look at the Utes, the out-of-town scoreboard for Tuesday night. What are you rooting for? All right, well, let's start with the games before the Sabres take the ice at 10 o'clock. A lot of hockey to watch if you're interested. 7 o'clock, Columbus at Detroit. All right, so Columbus at Detroit. Now, Columbus stinks. Don't be too hopeful, but also Detroit is losing to a lot of bad teams. They didn't lose to the Sabres, but they've lost to Arizona twice recently. They have some other bad teams as well. Tarasov is going to be in net for Columbus, so I like that. Reimer for Detroit, so anything can happen. Go Columbus in that one. The next game that matters, Pittsburgh at New Jersey. This one, nothing can really go great. Just don't have it go to overtime. Don't have it be a 3-point game. The Devils are hot behind with 3 points back of the Sabres. Pittsburgh's 2 points back of the Sabres. So I might say I'd rather have the Devils win just because they're further back and they've played one more game. That seems right to do. Other games that matter to the Sabres on Tuesday night. Hurricanes at Islanders. That is a 7:30 puck drop. Carolina favored on the road, so that's good news. We'll see who starts in net for Carolina. Sorokin is going for the Islanders after Varlamov played their last game. So go Carolina at 7:30. The other game started at 7. And that's pretty much it until you get to Sabres and Canucks at 10 o'clock. So you're rooting for the Hurricanes. You're rooting for probably the Penguins in regulation. That one's important. Just don't have that game go to overtime. And you're rooting for the Blue Jackets. Those are your 3 games to watch and care about before Sabres and Canucks at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. All right. When we come back, speaking of Sabres in action Tuesday, Sabres and Canucks, we'll preview it. Coming back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, how challenging are the Vancouver Canucks? I'll have that for you when we come back. We are brought to you here on the Locked On Sabres podcast by Robinhood. Did you know, even if you have a 401k for retirement, you could still have an IRA. Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood's even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. All right, final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. I mentioned Locked On Sports Today, football, college hoops, but also check them out coming up Wednesday night, March 20th, 7 p.m., 24/7 streaming channel. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Check out Locked On Sports Today because they're going to have an awesome MLB season preview exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. Local insight, MLB local experts of Locked On Podcast Network. Find it March 20th, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Locked On Sports Today streaming channel. Sabres and Canucks at 10 o'clock. Sabres after dark once again. Vancouver. All right. Quickly on the Canucks. They are a great hockey team. They are having a great season. They are going to win their division. Kind of out of nowhere. That's a team, and more specifically, that's a franchise that I have put on blast since ever since I've had a microphone in front of me. I have, and that team has ever come up, have never, ever been respectful to their operation. I don't think it's a very good operation and never really has been. Jim Benning for years making dumb decision after dumb decision. Just a team that is always stuck in the middle. They're never bad enough to get the top players in the draft, and they're never good enough to be a Stanley Cup contender. Well, this year, maybe it's a little different. 92 points in 68 games. Again, they are going to win their division. A plus 54 is the second best goal differential in the NHL, only trailing Florida. Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, rocket ship to the moon. The guy who had, a little bit of a rocky first couple of years, had some elite talent that was showing, but consistency wasn't really there for Hughes. He has taken over, captain of the team. He has been unbelievable, rock star on the back end. One of the best defensemen in the world, for sure. And huge for Team USA when they go to the Olympics in a couple of years. So that's been big. And, everyone's lucky that Luukkonen became like a Vezina caliber goaltender this year, because if he hadn't, I would be every day reminding you that I wanted Thatcher Demko for the Buffalo Sabres last season. But Luukkonen has been so good, I haven't had to bring it up. But Thatcher Demko has been amazing this season. He is going to be a Vezina finalist. He's not going to win it. Connor Hellebuck is going to win it. By the way, another goalie idea that I talked about this offseason. I would have been all over you with Hellebuck and Demko all season long. But that's how good Luukkonen's been, because I've kept those two names out of my mouth all season long. Goal saved above expected this year. Hellebuck number 1 by a lot, but number 2 is Thatcher Demko. He really, by almost every metric that you look at, Thatcher Demko has been the second best goaltender in hockey all season long, which was easily predictable. Easily predictable. He had been a really strong starting goaltender year after year to start his career. Last year, he battled injuries all year and everybody knew it. But that's the thing, man. Like, when you know a player's injured, some guys we don't know. Like, I don't know if Tage Thompson's injured right now, but you have to consider it, but you don't know it. Demko, like, everyone knew. It was out there. It was public knowledge. And he was playing through it, and he had a down year. You can't judge him on that. You can't judge his value on that. He gets healthy. He's one of the best goaltenders in hockey. No surprise whatsoever that Demko has been that strong. The good news for the Sabres, though, they're not going to see Thatcher Demko on Tuesday night. Massive. That is really massive. Like, it really, truly is. Vancouver is a good hockey team, but some of their advanced numbers show they're not quite an elite team overall. They're a really good team that has an elite goaltender. That's what they are. If you look at expected goals for on the season, again, they're not bad at all. They're actually very good. They're 12th in the NHL in expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5, and that's not even mentioning how good their special teams are. Add into that Thatcher Demko, they're an elite team. Give them a backup goaltender, and okay, now they're pretty beatable. And if you look at Casey DeSmith on the season, who is the likely starter for this game, and I mentioned Demko is second in the league in goals saved above expected. Casey DeSmith is 40th, which out of 71 goaltenders, slightly below average is what we're looking at for him. So average goaltender in the NHL as opposed to a Vezina candidate. Very, very good news for the Sabres. Devon Levi will be going for the Sabres. So 2 backup goaltenders. And I might think that you have just as much confidence in Levi as you would to Smith. So goaltender to me is a wash for this game. But we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. If you're wondering about Vancouver's lineup and their stats on the season, I did mention that Quinn Hughes, rocket ship to the moon, one of the best defensemen in the world. He is third on their team in points, but they have 3 guys above a point per game. JT Miller, 87 points in 68 games. Elias Pettersson, 79 points in 68 games, and Quinn Hughes, 77 points in 68 games. Healthy, right? They've been very healthy. It's another big thing for Vancouver. They have not had a lot of injuries this year. Demko, a .917 save percentage. DeSmith, an .898 save percentage on the year. So that's what you're looking at for Vancouver. All right, how about our parlay of the day? We're bound. We're due. It's going to happen eventually. Bet the opposite if you really want. All right, parlay of the day. Let's take a look. I am going to kick things off on our partners over at FanDuel Sportsbook with Vancouver on the puck line. Let's go Vancouver minus a goal and a half. I'm going to bet against the Sabres here, plus 130. I got Vancouver to win this game by 2. I think the Sabres on a back-to-back is what worries me. The Sabres won their first 2 back-to-backs. The latter of their back-to-back stretches this season. They won their 2 games to start the year after they played the day before. And on the second day of the back-to-back since, the Sabres are 1-7. So they are often losing this game. They are often not energized and showing up to this game. So I got Vancouver minus a goal and a half because I'm getting the plus odds on it. So that is step number 1. Step number 2, I'm going to go players to record 3 or more shots on goal. And I'm going to go with Jeff Skinner. Skinner was firing from everywhere on Monday, and I believe that will continue. So Skinner, 3+ shots on goal. And I'm going to go with the over 6.5. So over 6.5, Vancouver minus 1.5 on the puck line. Jeff Skinner to record 3 or more shots. Plus 784. That would be 10 to win 78, 100 to win 780, so on and so forth. All right. It's going to do it. Sabres and Canucks. Enjoy the game. If you're staying up for it, try what I'm doing. MSG app. You can watch the game on replay. Just wake up early in the morning the next day. You get your sleep. You can wake up before work. Get the juices flowing a little bit. And we'll talk about the game tomorrow. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Go Sabres. We'll see if we get a win after Sabres and Canucks. And we'll talk to you next time here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.